Housing prices have skyrocketed, and no, the sellers are not greedy. But what has caused prices to climb this fast? And is there a relief in sight? Hey everybody, I'm Jerry Norman with Oregon Life Homes. I've been helping people buy and sell real estate here in the Roseburg area for the last 5 years. I absolutely love it. And if you're watching this, you're probably wondering why today's home prices feel like they've hit turbo mode, even when that seller bought in 2019 for half the price. So today I'm diving into the question I get almost daily, especially from first-time home buyers or people that have been renting for the last 5-6 years. And that question is, why is a seller selling for so much when they only bought it for half the price a few years ago? So I get it. If you've been looking through Zillow or any online home site, and then you see a house that you think you like for $350, but then you look at the sales history and you see that they bought it 4 years ago for $150,000. So you're not alone, and I know that this can feel frustrating. It can feel like the market is out to get you, but there's solid reasons for those home values, and no, the seller is not being greedy. It's where the home prices are today. Now, this video is not going to sit well with a lot of people, and I get that it could piss you off a little bit, but I'm just going to give it to you straight and exactly what and why home prices are where they're at today. And it's not because the sellers are greedy. So let's get on with the video. So first off, inflation. $300,000 today is not the same it was in 2018 and 2019. In 2020 and COVID times, inflation started rising. Lumber, gas, labor, everything got more expensive. When the dollar loses value, real assets like houses go up. And it's not what the seller paid 4 years ago, 5 years ago. It's what the home prices are going to cost them now to get into. And then we're in supply and demand. I know you've been watching Zillow and other home sites and realize that there's not a lot on the market. Well, that's supply and demand. If there's less supply, then the demand is higher. And so you can't blame the seller for getting more. That is just what the market is calling for. It's what people are willing to pay for that price. But why did it get to that mark? Well, here in Douglas County, for the last few years, it has been a seller's market. So the sellers could charge more. Now you're thinking that the sellers are greedy, but really, if you were in the seller's shoes, would you sell your house for $350,000 or would you just sell it for $10,000 more than you paid for it? Would you leave $100,000 on the table? I doubt it. This is just what the sellers can get for the house, and so it's not their fault. It's what the market is suggesting that those houses are for. And because of the COVID times, people from the bigger cities are moving to this area. And no, it's just not California people. It's everybody from all over the country are moving to remote areas. And it's not just Douglas County, it's other areas in the country. They are wanting to be in a more remote area. And so right after COVID, that's when home prices really started jacking up because the demand was there, but the supply was not. So the home prices raised. Have you ever noticed that there are fewer homes on the market today that check all your boxes? Drop me a comment and let me know what your biggest struggles are right now. Is it inventory or pricing? Here's another reason why home prices have raised is that mortgage rates post-COVID dropped to record lows. So that means somebody buying in 2021 could afford a much more home than you can today for the same monthly payment. Sellers who bought in that time got in cheap, but fast forward to today, even with a higher price, sellers who got in the market back then 2020, 21, got in with a cheap interest rate. And the reason why there's less on the market today is because of that cheap interest rate. And a lot of current owners were able to refinance into that cheap interest rate. So it doesn't make sense for them to sell on their 3% interest rate and move into a 6 or 7% interest rate today. So because sellers are selling now, they have the opportunity to charge more for their homes and get it because there's less homes on the market because of these cheap interest rates. That's one of the reasons what's driving these home prices to these high levels. And then obviously some reasons why a home can be more expensive is because they did a lot of renovations. Now those renovations don't always equal out into more value, but the seller is going to try and charge more, and they may or may not get that and recoup all of their renovation costs. But if a buyer is willing to pay that, then that's what that home is valued at that point. Value is what a buyer is willing to pay for a home. Now, you might not be willing to pay X amount for this home, but another buyer may. Now, if it doesn't, then that seller is going to need to lower their price. That doesn't mean that home prices are dropping, because then we go back to supply and demand. Supply is low and demand is high. People are still wanting to move, sellers are not wanting to move. However, today, in the middle of 2025, it is starting to even out a little bit. So with the current political market, things are shifting right now. So if you are a buyer, being prepared and pre-qualified to be ready for when home prices can change a little bit. I'm not saying that home prices are going to drop, and I'm not saying that they're going to raise either. It's just waiting for that change. And timing the market is nearly impossible. There are so many experts that have so many different opinions, and timing the market, it's just when you are able to get into that home. If home prices drop, like they did in 2008, where a lot of people lost a lot of value in their homes, the ones that really lost the value is the ones that sold. Now, if you don't need to sell when home prices are low, then don't. But that was the second worst housing crash since the Great Depression in 2008. There's no signs of that happening now, and it's going to take something major in the economy for that to happen. Now, you can watch my other video about housing market crashes, and that will dive in deeper, and why waiting for a housing market crash is not the right option. So I get it all the time. People are comparing home prices to past sales. If somebody's offering $350,000 for a really good house in a great neighborhood in Roseburg, and if the current market calls for it and the house is worth, I shouldn't say worth, because if you're watching this video, you're probably not thinking it's worth that. If the house is priced at $350,000 and it's a fair price for today's market, it doesn't matter that they paid $150,000 for it in 2017. That is a completely different market. So the question is, are you willing to pay the $350,000 for it now, or are you going to lowball them and get a $200,000 house? Most likely, and if you were in the seller's shoes, would you take $200,000 if you were priced at $350,000? I doubt it. So a lot of buyers that I have and are working with and talk to, these buyers want to make extremely low offers because that's what the seller paid for it 5 years ago, 6 years ago. Well, it's not worth that now. It's worth more. And that's just because of today's housing market. Now, who knows? That house could be worth less. If a catastrophe happened and we have another COVID or whatever, that house could drop significantly, but most likely not. So if you are considering about buying, understand that real estate it's not like stocks. It moves slower and gains historically slower over time. Even when there's been a dip, there still has been a long steady gain. And that's why sellers are selling higher than what they paid for it, because the market has moved, not just their personal equity. So breaking it all down, sellers are not being greedy about their home prices. It's what the market is pricing these homes at. Appraisers are valuing the homes at the value that they're priced at. Real estate agents are pricing the homes at what they're priced at, and that is today's value. That's what it's worth, because it's what a buyer and a seller are willing to agree upon. That would be the value. So let me know if you've got any comments. I'm sure I've hit a couple nerves down there. And yes, buyers did buy that house for $200,000, and yes, they are selling it today for $500,000. I get that question all the time, and no, they will not take an offer for $300,000. So if you've got any comments, leave them down below. I'd love to hear from you, and watch this other video about waiting for a housing market crash. And with that, you guys have a great day. Talk to you later.